Hello, my students, greetings of the day, and to everybody, my regards, whoever is watching this. Welcome to Bangla Shikha Classroom 2024, an endeavor of Paschim Bongo Samogro Shikha Mission under the Education Department, Government of West Bengal. I am Mita Dotto, an assistant teacher of Dokhineshwar Sri Sri Sharoda Devi Balika Vidya Mandir. Today, we will be doing class 10 English lesson, The Snail. Please open your books, the Bliss book, and open page 62, where we have the poem which we are going to do today. Now, this is a very interesting poem, and it's written by the poet William Cowper. So before we proceed, let us know a little about the poet. He was born on November 26, 1731 in England, and he died on April 25, 1800 in Norfolk, East Dereham. He was one of the most widely read English poets of his time. He was very, very popular, and The Task, The Popular Trees, these are some of his poems which brought a new direction to the 18th century nature poetry, and where he wrote about the joys and sorrows of everyday life. And that new direction which he brought also had minute details of the countryside. He had great love for rural and village life. He has sympathy for the poor, and what made him a very popular poet was his simplicity of language. Before we enter the synopsis of the poem, the explanation of the poem, we should know a little of the background of the snail. Snail, which is called Shamuk in Bengali, is a very small creature with a soft, wet and moist body, and you have often seen them, like in our weather, you must have seen snails moving around and eating grass in your school compound also. They move very slowly, eat garden plants, grass and other small plants which they can eat. They climb up little plants and walls also. Now, Cowper tells us the life and habits of the snail. So we see that the snail is a very simple creature, a very small creature of nature. And taking the snail as his subject, he portrays a very important part of the snail's habit, of the snail's living, which we as humans also need to learn. The snail, as we see, please refer to the poem, the first 4 lines of the first stanza. To grass or leaf or fruit or wall, the snail sticks close, nor fears to fall, as if he grew there, house and all together. So we see the snail attaches itself to the surfaces which has been mentioned, and it has no fear of falling down. And we see the poet projecting the snail as feeling very secured in his own home, the little shell that we see covering it. And at the slightest vibration or touch, the snail retreats into the shell and protects himself. And the poem also emphasizes the solitary nature of the poem, of the snail, and shows how much content it is within itself. It is also a metaphor to explain the themes of self-reliance, contentment and solitude. Now, what is a metaphor? A metaphor is a symbolic representation of something given to a nature, given to the nature of a thing. Here it is the snail, which actually it doesn't possess, but what we conceive it to be, and that symbolism. Here, how do we explained that the snail's house represents both a refuge and a prison, offering safety but also limiting its experience. The snail as we see, see the poet is representing it, is offering safety to itself. Whenever it is facing any problem, it has the opportunity of protecting itself by going into its own shell. But on the other hand, if we see, the snail cannot detach itself from its house. So it has limited experiences also. So these are the two things that we learn from the snail's life. One is attachment to secure itself, and also another is limitation because it attaches itself. The snail, as the poet shows, is very content to be alone, and it values its own company and possession. In comparison to Cowper's other poems which has religion in its subject, so supposedly a much more serious topic, the snail focuses on the simple joys of this little creature. Here, the values and attitudes of the 18th century, where a lot of stress was put on individualism and self-sufficiency, is also projected by the poet. The snail's contentment with its solitary existence says to us, speaks to us, teaches us that true happiness can be found within oneself. Here, I would want to mention you another thing. You have our very own poet Rabindranath Tagore. You have heard the song O Jonaki. In that also, Jonaki is a firefly, and we all know that it emits its own light. So, the poet there also says that it needs no light from outside to brighten it up. This is also a learning from us. Everybody of us, you students, we as teachers, elders, youngers, juniors, seniors, everybody, we have those good things in us, those abilities in us, just we need to identify those. Now, wherever the snail lives, it lives alone. It has no possessions or chattels. Excuse me. Now we go to the synopsis of the poem, where the first 4 lines I have already explained to you that the snail attaches itself to leaves or wherever it climbs up to and stays there in such a way as if it has no fear of falling, as if it grew there. So, the snail in the second stanza, as the poet says, within the house secure he hides, when danger imminent betides of storm or other harm besides of weather. Now we come to the second stanza, where the house refers to the snail's shell, where it feels very safe and secure. Whenever there is any type of imminent danger, a danger that the snail can sense through vibration, it can hide itself into its shell. And even except for natural calamities, if the snail senses that there is any other sort of problem, other sort of danger that is approaching it, it may be a human being trying to harm itself, it may be another snail that is approaching it. Later in the last stanza, the before last stanza, the penultimate stanza, we will come to this reference also, that when the snail sees another snail, he starts eating faster. So, if there is any sort of danger, competition that the snail may be sensing, it goes inside and hides in its shell. This shows the snail's instinct of self-preservation. and its ability to protect itself from threats. The solitary and self-sufficient nature of the snail is described by the poet here. So, he sticks to the walls by himself, he protects himself from danger. These are the things we learn from the first two stanzas. Then again, come to the third stanza, where the second stanza, where we have ended, where what we have been explained, it comes to the third stanza also. Give but his horns the slightest touch, his self-collecting power is such, he shrinks into his house with much displeasure. So you have seen the snail having two little projections like horns. So when those are touched in any way, the snail goes inside the house. So that is called his self-collecting power, and that is very fast. As soon as you touch the horns of the snail, it goes inside its house, and it is not happy to do that. It has great displeasure. It's very unsatisfied by the way it is disturbed. Then in the next stanza, or in the fourth stanza, where we find wherever he dwells alone, except him has chattels none, well satisfied to be his own whole treasure. So in these lines, we see that the snail considers itself to be its own treasure. It doesn't need anything from outside to make it feel valuable. It has no possessions. Chattels means possessions, except for himself. Except for itself, it has nothing. Despite having no belongings, the snail is very happy and thinks itself to be its own treasure. That says that it finds value and completeness in its own existence without the requirement of anything else, no possessions, nobody. It needs to be happy. So despite the solitude, or like despite the loneliness that he lives in, the snail is content and self-sufficient. How is it self-sufficient? It lives by its own, it clings to the surfaces, whichever it likes, and it protects itself from anything that it thinks is a threat to his life. The poem emphasizes the snail's resilience, independence, and simplicity, celebrating its ability to live in its environment despite its solitary and minimalistic existence. It has a very small existence in this huge world where there are so many things. The existence of the snail is very, very little. Yet, in its own world, it is completely happy, satisfied, and it lives its existence in a very treasured way. It seems though the snail and its shell have become a part of whatever it is attached to. They grow together in the surface. When it clings to a leaf, it seems that the snail has grown there. When it clings to the wall, it seems that the snail has grown there. So, the snail's strong grip and the sense of safety establishes itself completely in a very strong way to its surrounding. Now, in the next stanza, please look into your books. Thus, hermit like his life he leads, nor partner of his banquet needs. And if he meets one, only feeds the faster. Here, the image of a hermit is a very common figure in the 18th century Spenserian period where copper existed. So, the hermit is often mentioned in this poetry, and here also the reference of hermit has been given by Cowper, where his hermit, his snail is like a hermit who is identified by and identical with his home. Now, who is a hermit? A hermit is a saint living in solitude by his own. He also has very minimum requirements in his life, and the snail is compared to that hermit. And hermit-like may also refer to, some say that there is a creature called hermit crab, and the hermit crab also looks very similar to the snail, and it lives on the seashore, and as the snail has its own shell surrounding it, the hermit crab takes refuge of perhaps the dry snail shell or some other type of covering which may protect it, goes inside it and carries it itself in that covering wherever it goes. So there may be a comparison here with the hermit crab, and definitely there is a likeness to the hermit who also has no possessions, no belongings, and goes anywhere just because he has also no chattels or no possessions and is free to move around. Now we see another thing also, as I was referring to you before also, the possibility of companion or friendship when danger imminent besides of storm or other harm besides of weather. Here the other harms may refer to the presence of another snail which, though not very threatening, though not very dangerously threatening to the snail, is definitely is used definitely in a negative sense for the snail, because in the next fifth stanza, as I am referring to here, it's saying, nor partner of his banquet needs, and if he meets one, only feeds the faster. So he needs no banquet. A banquet is a party where we human beings, we go gather together with friends, we eat good food, but like the hermit, the snail has no need of that. And if the snail meets another snail, he only feeds faster, because if he doesn't feed faster, then he has threat of the other snail coming and eating his food. This leads to the snail to his hermit-like existence. So as the hermit collects his own food, lives for his existence, so we see the image of the hermit is placed here in resemblance to the snail, or the snail is compared to the life of a hermit. As the snail and its house are inseparable, in the last stanza, see, it's very nicely said, who seeks him must be worse than blind. If somebody sees the covering of the snail, the shell of the snail, and the snail is inside, he is blind. That person is called to be worse than blind, who cannot identify its master with its house. So the snail is the master of its own house and lives in it always. So if anybody sees the shell or the house of the snail, which is the shell, then he should also identify that. He should also understand the master of that house is inside the house. And if he doesn't feel that, if he doesn't realize that, then that person is worse than the blind person. Now we come to the theme. Already while discussing the stanzas, the synopsis of the poem, we have already come to know that the theme of the poem, The Snail, by William Cowper, revolves around solitude, resilience, and self-sufficiency in the face of adversity. So we see the snail living his own life, but when there is any adverse situation, the snail knows how to protect itself. So it is a message for us also that we should know to handle ourselves in the face of any adversities or any problems that may come in our way. Through the metaphor of the snail, the poem explores themes of independence and contentment with one's own company. Now, the snail here is used as a metaphor of solitude, independence, and self sufficiency. So, we can also see through this symbolism that even if we live a self sufficient life, we can be very content with ourselves, we can be independent, not depending on anybody. So, we have to learn from this also that we should be self sufficient. Self sufficient gives us independence. The snail here is portrayed as a creature that sticks closely to various surfaces to find security. So we also need to strongly cling to our roots. We also need to cling ourselves to the positive thoughts and whatever is good to save ourselves from any threats or dangers. So here also there is a lot to learn from this little creature. It lives alone and is depicted as being self-satisfied with itself as its only possession. We have seen that the snail has no other possessions. It has no shackles. It can move around anywhere. When we move from one place to another, we have so much of material belongings that it itself becomes a problem. So we should learn to possess the good qualities that we can carry within ourselves. That will make us self-satisfied. So we need to learn from the snail that whatever we have within us should be carried well, and that is our very own treasure, which will make us self-satisfied. No material things can make us self-satisfied and complete. The poem celebrates the snail's ability to survive and thrive in its environment, highlighting its resilience and simplicity amidst the challenges of nature. You must be knowing Darwin's theory that survival of the fittest, struggle for existence. We know since the creation of this earth, so many species have died. There is a limited space in this world and not everybody can exist. So there is a fight among all specimens. And who survives? The one who is fittest in these challenges of nature, one who can tackle the nature properly, one who can take up the challenges of nature, fight from within, can exist. So this is a very, very important thing for you students, because you have challenges, you as students have a lot of challenges to face in this world. So you should nourish and cherish all the good qualities in yourself. Be self-sufficient, be disciplined, and make yourself to fight and make yourselves ready to fight the challenges of the environment. And that environment may be nature, may be the environment that is created by human beings, the challenges created by situations. So this is the theme of the poem, and this little creature gives us a lot of learning which we all should remember. Now, figures of speech is not a thing that you have much in your syllabus, but many of you must be aspiring for taking up literature, and you should be knowing that a poem is made much ornamented, much beautiful with the figures of speech. Like we dress up to make ourselves look beautiful and presentable. Figures of speech is that ornamentation of a poem, the use of which makes a poem much more interesting. Here as metaphor, I have already told you the entire poem uses the snail as a metaphor for self-sufficiency and contentment. Then there is imagery. You see, when we read the first stanza of this poem, to grass or leaf or fruit or well, the snail sticks close nor fears to fall. When we are reading this line, we can literally picturize the snail sticking to a leaf, sticking to the walls. So this is imagery, where Imagery is used to make readers perceive things involving the five senses. So we are not only listening or reading the poem, but we can see with our eyes also. We can visualize with our mind's eye that the snail is literally clinging to these places. So this makes the poem more lively. Then there is parallelism. Wherever he dwells alone. These dwells, he dwells is used twice. It's the parallel structure that is used in describing the snail's solitary existence. Except himself has shackles none. So, except himself has shackles none. Shackles none means he doesn't possess anything. So, except himself also means his solitude. And shackles none also means he has nothing. So parallelism, it refers to using similar words, clauses or phrases or sentence structures or other grammatical elements to emphasize similar ideas in a sentence. Then there is simile. It is a literary device that compares two unlike or different things. Like very commonly we say to describe the color of a shirt, we say as white as a milk. As white as milk, dudher moto shada. So that's simile for us. Then there is personification. Personification is the representation of an abstract quality or idea in the form of a person. We know that the snail is not a person, but when the snail is told to be living in a house, hiding, these are human qualities which are attributed to the snail. So the snail is given human characteristics such as the ability to hide, feel unsatisfied when somebody touches. So these are some of the figures of speech which, if you keep in mind, will make the poem reading or any poem reading much more interesting for you. Now there are at the end of this lesson, you have changing sentences into questions. So how do we change any sentence into questions? Sentences are converted into questions by using do, does, can, could, would, and the WH words, who, what, where, when. So it usually comes before the verb. The question words usually comes before the verb. What is your name? Why are you late? Then there are question tags, isn't it? Can you? Didn't they? Didn't they go there? So these are also some question tags which can be used. Then there are inversion words like am I late? Like I am late becomes am I late? So just inversion or changing the place of the auxiliary verb and the modal verb, that also helps you in changing the sentences into questions. Here see, locate the helping verb in the sentence. Common helping verbs include have, has and had. Additionally, words like should, would, could, might, may and will are also helping verbs. Please read the sentence. Reread the sentence again and try to find out the helping verbs. And then move the helping verb to the front. Like here, the teachers have treated us kindly. To make that a question, just transfer the helping verb to the front. Have the teachers treated us kindly? They had already eaten. Had they already eaten? She will win the fight. Will she win the fight? So these are some of the examples. And please note that whenever you make a question, please put a question mark at the end of the sentence. That is very important, which usually students miss carelessly. You must be knowing it, but out of this is one of the careless mistakes that you make. Now next, there is a formal letter which you have been learning since class 8, 7, 8, you have been learning letters. And at the back of your class 9 books, class 10 books, learning English, I mean the Bliss, a very vivid way of how the process of writing letters it's given. I have here made a summary of the points. Please go through this. A formal letter follows a strictly prescribed format. Please maintain that format. Don't use colloquial words, because you are writing to somebody who is a very regarded person at the office. He has his post. The letter should be very precise and to the point, because he or she doesn't have so much of time to read unnecessary details. And remember that the mistake that is seen in answer sheets is that as there is a different marks, as there is a different marks allotted for the format of the letter, what some students do is just write the format and there is no body of the letter. But remember that if there is no body, if there is no content, then the letter, even if the format is correct, is given no credit. So you should remember that the body of the letter is most important, and what consists of the body, the matter of the letter is written here, and you may write it in 3 different paragraphs. Paragraph 1 is self-introduction and the purpose of writing the letter, which should also be mentioned in the subject before you greet the person the letter will be going to. Then the details of the matter, and conclude by mentioning what you expect, what solution you expect in short should be highlighted in the concluding part. And then there is a complimentary closing where you should be very politely ending your letter. So the important points to be kept in mind are written here in a summary way. Please go through it properly, go through the slide properly so that you can retain, use the right tone. Don't be very careful that there are no spelling or grammatical errors when you write these formal letters. And everything that is necessary is included, remembering the most important part is the body of the letter. Now, thank you students for your patient hearing, and the most important thing that we learned today is happiness belongs to the self-sufficient. So we all should try to be self-sufficient, do things together. It should not be that our parents, my mother, my father comes me to take from school, and often there's a thing we see that the student is going and the mother is carrying the bag, her bag. So this should not happen. Do your own things together. Help your parents as much as you can. Life is a big part, and there you need to be self-sufficient. Our parents will not always be there to guide us. So let us be our own guide, and remember, happiness belongs to the self-sufficient. So have a good time, be in good health, and be happy. Thank you, students.